Alright, something new for this channel. It's gonna be a Q&A.
Joining us now is Jonny von Wallström, the director of the film of Arte.
So first question. Click Klill. Is that how you say it? Love the archive footage in your vlogs. Where do you find it? Okay, so most of the archive stuff comes from Prelinger Archives. You can find it on archive.org. It's totally free. If you've seen archive material that Vice uses or other people, it's usually from there because it's an open archive that has a certain type of archive stuff from the US mainly. A lot of very funny and stupid and morbid type of infomercials that the US used to run, for instance about the Vietnam War. If you know any other places to find archive footage, comment below. I would love to hear about it. So Giovanni Bertoia asks, I would love to know who are the filmmakers that mostly inspired your work. It's kind of hard because nowadays I don't get inspired so much about filmmakers anymore. Sometimes I can get inspired by a film or something that somebody does, but when I started out I was really influenced by, for instance, Roy Andersson, a Swedish filmmaker that I think is amazing. I think Bo Widerberg, who is also a Swedish filmmaker, was hugely inspired by him. Stefan Jarl, also a Swedish filmmaker. Then if you look at American ones, like Jim Jarmusch, amazing. I'm not so fond of documentary filmmakers. Documentary filmmakers mostly do stuff that is like ugly and boring, and I don't know, I have a hard time watching docs. Some stuff that I watch is amazing, but it's not like I follow a director, because it's quite rare that you find a director that does, you know, film after film really amazing. And it has to do with budget. For instance, Roy Andersson, I think he made his success film A Love Story, and then it took like, I don't know, 20 years for him to make Songs from the Second Floor, I think it's called. Which is his perhaps best work yet. Other filmmakers, like commercial directors, advertising directors. I love what Solomon Lighthelm does. I love what Gustav Johansson does. YouTube, Casey, of course. Casey is an amazing vlogger that has kind of developed a style that is his own. I was really inspired by that when I started this vlog. I spent perhaps 6 months just trying to develop this vlog to become something that is, you know, me and not a copy of him. And I think in the end, like, I've always done cinematic stuff, so it was kind of obvious, but the personal touch of what he does, that really inspired me. Like how he works with his voice, that inspired me. And when I went to a shitty film school, or several shitty film schools, and one of them I applied with a self-portrait. That's probably one of the earliest things that I'm most proud of. And the funny thing is that with the vlog, I've kind of gone back to making films in the same way as I did that self-portrait when I applied to go to film school. So I've kind of went all this loop to find back to the place where I started. And it's the way it works with schools, and when you try to get into a system and you have to go this whole way around it, and then eventually you might come back, or you won't. You might just do shit the rest of your life too. All right. Art of Directing asks, do you recommend any books or trainings that would be a good place to start? I will definitely read yours. Thanks for sharing. So the most inspiring book that I've ever read is A Rebel Without a Cause by Robert Rodriguez. He was the biggest inspiration to me when I started making films. He's such a badass dude that just went out. He put himself in the hospital to get money to make his film. Like, he did experiments on his own body, like scientific experiments. And then he took that money, he made his first film, El Mariachi. He came up during the same time as Tarantino did, and then went on to do Sin City and a lot of stuff. But his model of making films is what inspired me the most, I think. And read his book, it's amazing. Then, in terms of like books that isn't film, The War of Art, amazing. Go get it. If you have trouble performing or doing stuff, creating, go read the book, or audiobook, I would prefer. Content Inc. is an amazing book about content marketing. I think that's really valuable to anybody that does YouTube and try to figure out how to earn money doing it. Content Inc. is pretty much like the biggest inspiration of how we work in our company. Yeah, I think that's about it for now. So someone asked, where do you find music for your films? Like most of the music that I use is from Artlist. Artlist is somebody that I was so blown away by their idea of how to reinvent how a stock music site works. And the moment I started using it, it was just because like, oh, these are amazing songs. It didn't have nothing to do with prices or anything. But then it actually costs so little. It's like $200 a year. And I use it for everything from commercials to, yeah, anything. Of course, that adds up if you have it for a couple of years. But it's an amazing site. I think it has really high quality type of audio. I would love if there would be more separate stems, because you can't really separate it. But they did add a feature recently, which is like 30-second spots. So do go check out Artlist. I'm an affiliate of Artlist, so I don't get paid to do this, but if you go in the description and click the link there, then I at least can get some kickback for recommending it to you. And I'm telling you, it is my favorite stock music place to go. And I've used a lot of them. So David Griffin, can you talk about equipment and the day of being an indie filmmaker? I have a lot of equipment, and it's because I've worked for over 10 years trying to build this type of indie filmmaking production company. I've had different production companies, but now with my brother, we've ended up, figuring our shit out, and now we have a production company that actually is doing really good stuff, and it's actually making money. So the vlog for us was a way to kind of try something new, to try to develop our skills within this new way of making films online, and either documentaries or commercials or whatever it is. And for that, we kind of changed how we work with equipment. We did use like Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera for a long time now, but then 2 of them has broken. So I'm kind of waiting for there to maybe be an update this year, and then I will probably buy a new one. But I'm holding off to get a new one. For now, I'm using the Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera for this. Usually I use a Canon C300. And I think cameras doesn't really matter. It's the story that matters. It's lighting, it's sound, all those things. And for this, I'm really trying to up the game of YouTube. Like I'm really trying to shoot stuff that looks really nice and sound really nice and has a good production quality to it. It should compare to going to the cinema. And one thing that I think about when I do this is that this should be as good as my films in the cinema. There shouldn't be a difference. Why would there be a difference? That's stupid. So to me, it doesn't make sense to get a camera that doesn't shoot raw or raw-like images, which are basically uncompressed. So that's for cameras. And then for lenses, I use anything. Canon, I love my Voigtlander lenses that I have now, which are like pancake lenses, like this big. I use them on the C300 because I need to have it smaller. And then I use the Sigma 18 to 35, 1.4. It's a really nice zoom lens. I use that for a lot of advertising stuff that I do. The Canon 24-105mm lens, I use a lot for that. When I shoot CinemaScope, I like using wider lenses. So for that, I rarely try to go beyond 35mm on the C300, for instance, because it kind of, you can get close to people, but you also get a lot of the rooms. So I love that way of working with CinemaScope. It doesn't make sense to me to use CinemaScope if you get too close, because then it gets, you lose all the environment and everything. Other equipment with audio, for instance, I've really spent a lot of time now, because I'm starting a new film, to try to develop a way of working with audio in a different way. And with that, I've bought these small recorders, like these Electrosonics PDAs, and they record, you know, to a small recorder this big. So I'm using that instead of lavalier mics. But then I also have lavalier mics that send the audio to the camera, so I actually have, you know, hearing capability, and not just put it on rec and then, you know, it's gone, and if it stops, it stops. I also use a Sennheiser 416, which is a kind of expensive shotgun mic, but it is probably the best shotgun mic out there. It's kind of old, but it is the best. For this, I'm using Sennheiser, what is it called? So for this, I'm using the Sennheiser MKE 600. It's a really, like, for the price, it's a great mic. And you can have batteries, you don't have to have XLRs. I think this is a mic that is so all around. I also have a Rode mic that is kind of similar. I don't remember if it's G something. It's also a cheaper one. I like using smaller equipment, but with audio, it's so important to get close to the subjects. And if you have a shotgun mic that maybe costs $1,000, what happens is that can get you closer to the subjects and getting you better audio. So for me, I've spent a lot of money now on upping my audio game, and that becomes super important to me when you have the right cameras and you have all the lenses and you have all that stuff. But if you don't have great audio, why do you have good lenses? Another thing that I really like is the Tentacle Sync, which I use for dual audio. So when you use Tentacle Sync, you can actually put time code on your stuff. So you just push a button in the editing program, which is DaVinci Resolve for me, and then you just sync it and it's done. And you don't have to do waveforms things, or you don't have to do it frame by frame, which I have done so many times. So that's another thing. For lights, I start to use a lot of LED lights. This is an LED light over there. There's an LED light behind the wall over there. Usually I try to use natural lighting, and then I add the type of lighting that I want to set as characters, but I usually use the ambient lighting as, you know, a base for everything. I think that, yeah. Then also, another camera that I love using, but it has horrible noise, is the X5R from DJI. I use it on the Inspire drone that I have, and I use it on the Osmo. It's amazing, and it's so compact, and it's so used for vlogging. Like, you just push a button and it flips the camera towards your face, or you push a button and then it goes forward and gets all stable, and I put it on my bike and it gets stable, and yeah, it's crazy. Or on a car or something. The bad things is that, and good things, have to use a phone to do it. That's a bad thing, but it also makes it easy, and yeah, battery issues with the iPhone makes it hard. But other than that, it's an amazing invention. But the noise in it, like the X5R is the raw version of it, it sounds so terrible. You can't record audio with it. But then I usually try to make sound editing a big part of my editing. So I do all the ambience and I do all the effects and all that afterwards. So I shoot silently basically, and then I just sound edit everything. And then regarding the day-to-day life of an indie filmmaker, I'm kind of getting fed up with making films for an industry that, you know, there's no money to make in filmmaking when it comes to the international filmmaking scene in documentary. nobody makes any money. It's crazy. Like, people think that you make money off of docs. Oh no, you do not. You use it as a calling card for yourself. You use it as a way to kind of up yourself in the industry. I get so much calls, like advertising agencies calling me just because I've made docs. So that's why I kind of invest a lot of money into making them look good and all those things. Because by putting all that time and effort into making it look good and kind of developing my style within it, it comes back to me, you know, tenfold. But I don't get paid to make the films, unfortunately, because it's so hard to fund the films. And the people that do get paid, they're really few. And if they do get paid, they get paid a certain amount that won't last them. Like having a full-time job, sure, they might do okay, they might survive, but they're not gonna have a comfortable life living like that. You have to do other stuff. Some people do lectures, some people do advertising, some people do TV, some people do consulting, but nobody just does documentaries, unfortunately. So this was the first Q&A. Let me know if you want more of this, because in the future I'd love to do more specified around subjects and that sort of thing. What would you love to talk about?
It's a perfect day for the road.